in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarocar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today's our topic is very current and very hot. And the topic is politicians versus bureaucrats. But before I will go on the main topic, I would like to inform you that today we are observing World Ocean Day. World Ocean Day is to remind the major role that oceans of the world play in our everyday life. The World Ocean Day is celebrated. The day is observed on June 8th every year to inspire actions and make use of marine resources responsibly. The World Ocean Day was officially given recognition by United Nations in 2008. United Nations General Assembly decided June 8th as the special day. The theme for the 2021 is Our Ocean, Our Responsibility. The theme of 2021 is relevant to the current times as it will connect oceans science with the need of the society. And we are also observing today the World Brain Tumor Day. World Brain Tumor Day is observed on 8th June every year. German Brain Tumor Association, a non-profit organization, first marked this day in the year 2000 to spread the awareness about the brain tumor among the general public. Media conference with Lal Goel wishes you happy World Ocean Day and hopes that by celebrating World Brain Tumor Day, more and more awareness will be created so that many lives can be saved. Now coming to the main topic, and the topic is politicians versus bureaucrats. A politician is a person active in party politics or a person holding or seeking an elected seat in government. Politicians propose, support, and create laws or policies that governs the land and by extension its people. Broadly speaking, a politician can be anyone who seeks to achieve political power in the government. Politicians are people who are politically active, especially in party politics. Positions range from local office to executive, legislative, and judicial offices of regional and national governments. A bureaucrat is a member of a bureaucracy and can compose the administration of any organization of any size, although the term usually connotes someone within an institution of government or corporate. The term bureaucrat derives from bureaucracy, which in turn derives from the French bureaucratie, first known from the 18th century. Bureaucratic work had already been performed for many centuries. In countries such as India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, bureaucrats are known to be officials that run the government sector at administrative levels. Once hailed as the steel frame of independent India, the country's civil service today is a pale shadow telecon past when officers of high intellectual caliber, personal integrity, and the brio to give unbiased advice held sway. Successors of the heaven-born colonial Indian civil services or ICS and the analogous Indian police or IP, newly independent India civil services was not too different. They equitably managed the turbulent times of partition, rife with bloodshed, refugees influx, and the division of assets between the two newly created nations. In the decades thereafter, guided by competent political leaders, they kept hope alive by nurturing a fledgling democracy in a hugely diverse country, which few in the world thought would survive as a nation state. But over 7 decades later, India's crisis-ridden bureaucracy is unrecognizable, will-fed for its inefficiency, nepotism, and corruption, but above all else, for its arrogance and high maintenance and low mileage capabilities. This common perception of the civil services overshadows the handful of upright officers who continue boldly to adhere to old values and keep the system. Ironically, it is because of this later diminishing complement of officers that many systems continue to function relatively well. Our Prime Minister, Honorable Mr. Narendra Modi, seems to concur with this public perception of the Indian bureaucrats. He recently criticized country's civil servants in the Lok Sabha, venting his particularly against the members of the hallowed Indian Administrative Service (IAS) that heads the country's bureaucratic pinnacle. The German sociologist Max Weber had famously defined bureaucracy as a highly structured organization predicted on specialization and technical competence, a formal set of rules and regulations, a well-defined hierarchy, and impersonality in application of rules. A century later, Weber would be hard-pressed, to put it mildly, to define Indian bureaucracy even remotely in this overreaching framework. This huge power of the bureaucracy in India, much greater than the power that if the British Indian bureaucracy wielded, came about during the haste of the 1947 partition and constitution drafting. Sardar Patel made a strong case in the Constituent Assembly to continue with the colonial bureaucracy. There was no time to think about the alternative method. So the panic led not only the constitutional inclusion of the All India services, but the way Part 14 of the Constitution was drafted, enormous restrictions were imposed on the sovereignty of the executive and the people of India. In all democracies, the executive is supreme with almost unlimited discretionary powers to hire and fire public servants. Not so in India. Article 311 massively dilutes this power and makes it virtually impossible for the executive to remove public servants. As a result, over the past 70 years, even the PMs of India have not been able to easily remove corrupt IAS officers, leave alone the incompetent ones. A prime minister's entire tenure can go by in chasing up a single case through the courts. There are cases in the Modi government where even compulsory retirement has been insufficient to get rid of bad officers. Our bureaucracy thus sits on a pedestal well above elected representatives. Effectively, it is the IAS that is sovereign in India, not the politician. There is a widely cited but spurious argument that has enabled the IAS to hold on to their powers, that Indians trust their politicians less than they trust IAS officers. The people perceive the IAS to be incompetent, self-interested, and arrogant, but they trust their political leaders even less. Further, many honest IAS officers, in their genuine concern for India, want the IAS to continue so it can block corrupt politicians. But their remedy does not address the cause of the problem. Fixing the problem of corrupt politicians requires a different approach, and we should not use the existence of bad politicians to justify the world's most powerful but incompetent bureaucracy. I am very sorry that I have to use bit hard word, but this is the public perception which I have mentioned. But today we have a very, very elite authority in this topic, those who have years and years of expertise in this field, our panelists with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist. He is Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, is one-man expert commission on labor to prepare an action plan for the welfare and development of the workforce in the context of COVID-19. He is also the principal advisor, Government of India Heritage Project. He was former head of disaster management, Government of India, and Central Draft Relief Commissioner, Government of India. He was the Vice Chancellor of National Museum, University of Delhi. He has authored 40 books in English, Malayalam, and Hindi, including novels, short stories, and essays. 4 of his books have become bestsellers. 4 books on Vastu and architecture and 1 book on housing received prestigious the Sharjah International Book Fair Award. Dr. Bose is an housing expert, innovator, writer, orator, and visionary. The path-breaking institutions set up by him, such as Nimriti Kendra Building Center, District Tourism Council, and Habitat Alliance, have been replicated at the state, national, and global level. He was the head of the prestigious Supreme Court Committee on the Treasures of Sri Padma Swami Temple. Dr. Bose addressed United Nations General Assembly and specialized sessions 5 times on various international issues. Dr. Bose is a recipient of 31 national and international awards, including United Nations Global Best Practice Award. He also received prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship. Kerala government termed him Lord of Ideas. Former Prime Minister Mr. Manmohan Singh called him inspired civil servant, and our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi called him man of ideas. Welcome, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose on our show. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, I read a report which has given the views of the public perception from both the sides about the politicians as well as the bureaucrats. More on bureaucrats, because to say about the politician is better not to say. So now, being a very, very seasoned and very, you can say, expert in the field and very veteran in the IAS officer, we would like to know from you the politicians versus bureaucrats. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. And thanks to all the distinguished panelists participating in this important discussion. So the question of politician versus bureaucrat, or the political executive versus bureaucracy, has been a recurring theme in India. At times it comes to flashpoints here and there. We should have a relook at the role of the politician vis-a-vis the bureaucracy. So in a democratic setup, let us have no doubt that all the authority, all the powers, whether it is to the politicians or to the bureaucrats, it comes from the common man. The Constitution of India is drafted by we, the people of India, who gave it to ourselves, this Constitution. Therefore, if the political executive or the bureaucracy, they are the dispensers of India's destiny, they owe it to the mandate given by the people. Therefore, whether it is politician or the bureaucracy, their first duty is to the people, their second duty is to the people, their third duty is to the people. Having said it, who has the upper hand or who is the ultimate in a democratic system of governance? I have no doubt that a political executive is the ultimate, because the political executive alone has the mandate of the people. The bureaucrat does not have it. Then why is the bureaucracy there? What is the mandate given to the bureaucracy? The bureaucracy can advise the political executive the pros and cons of any issue. Fearlessly, boldly, they should be able to bring it to the notice of the decision maker, that is the political executive. Once the advice of the bureaucrat is approved, they should implement it faithfully. Suppose the advice is rejected, they have to implement it more faithfully. There is no other way. Look at the bureaucracy of the ancient times. We had a system of governance, a philosophy of governance, which believed in Bahujan Sukhaya, Bahujan Hitaya. Millennia before, the utilitarians, John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham, taught us the greatest good of the greatest number. India had an administrative philosophy which believed in Bahujan Sukhaya, Bahujan Hitaya. People are the center and the center of governance in this country, then and now. That is why the ancient civil servants, Bhishma, Kripacharya, Vidura, Shukracharya, these are the eminent civil servants of the past. They also had the same problem of collision with the political executive. A king's duty is to see everything, analyze everything, and protect everybody. But if the king himself, that is the political executive himself, is blind like Dhritarashtra, what are the options before the civil servants? See, in Mahabharata, on all critical occasions, the civil servants tendered their advice. When the game of dice was sanctioned, when the wily Shakuni was allowed to represent the Kauravas in the game of dice, when the Pandavas were sent to exile, Vanavasa, when on the return from Vanavasa and Ajnatavasa, they were denied half the kingdom, 5 villages, 5 homes. All these civil servants said, no, this is not proper. but a blind king overruled them. Ultimately, when the decision was taken to go for war, the Mahabharata war, these civil servants did not run away from the scene. Bhishma was generalissimo. Yes, once your advice is accepted, implement it faithfully. If your advice is rejected, implement it more faithfully. That is the only way for the Indian civil service. Now coming to the brass tacks, there are certain distinctions that are to be made. I would like to make a distinction between political action and political interference. These are two different things. In the 45 years in the public administration, I would say that political action is something to be welcomed. Political action is something when an MLA or an MP or a panchayat member puts pressures on the collector to see that the development scheme sanctioned for the district is implemented speedily and faithfully. That is political action, which has to be welcomed. But political interference, when you pressurize the chief engineer to change the alignment of a road so that the road can go through the property of my father-in-law or mother-in-law, no. That is political interference, which has to be resented at any cost. So this subtle line has to be kept in mind by all the bureaucrats. Bureaucrats are not the ultimate in democracy. Political executives are the ultimate. Political action has to be welcome. Political intervention has to be shunned. Having said it, now let me come to the flashpoint in the relation between the center and the state in the name of the Indian Administrative Service. I would specifically bring your attention to the recent controversy that is there in West Bengal, where the chief secretary, now of course the ex-chief secretary, he refused to attend the meeting, especially the one on disaster management, convened with the Prime Minister himself. He was already given an extension of 3 months by the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet. The same Appointments Committee had to withdraw it. He was asked to report to the center, he refused. Now there are issues drawn. It's a square issue, squarely drawn. Where do we take a decision? Being a bureaucrat, I would say, defending the rights of the bureaucracy, I would still say that as per the bureaucracy is concerned, as far as All India Service is concerned, they are governed by the All India Service Rules, 1951. Yes, Article 6, Provision 6 of the rule says that when an officer of a state, an IAS officer or an IPS officer from the state is to be sent to the center, the concurrence of both are required. The center has to concur, the state also has to concur. Apparently, here is a high-handed action which is done by the government of India. No. The proviso reads, if there is a disagreement between the state and the center's decision shall prevail. That is the crux of it. Here the center wants him to come, state does not want him to go. Obviously, there is a disagreement. Who decides? The law clearly says that in case of a disagreement, the center's decision shall prevail. And now to the moral and ethical and practical aspects of that. See, an IAS officer should not hunt with the hound and run with the hare. He has to be well within the rules and regulations of the service which maintains him. In that case, in every dispute, we can say much can be said on both sides. But here the law is very clear. And now, see, of the Holy Roman Empire, it was said that it is neither holy nor Roman, an empire at all. Echoing this, Sardar Patel, while addressing the first batch of IAS officers in Metcalfe House in New Delhi, at that time, that was a training center, training school for IAS officers. Then only it was shifted to Mussoorie, Lal Bahadur Shastri, National Academy of Administration. On 21st of April, 1948, Sardar Patel said, the Indian civil service, it is neither Indian nor civil, nor is it imbued with a sense of service. That is not what India needs. India created the All India Services so that there can be one agency which can knit this country together. Yes, they share their loyalties between the state and the center. But there is no free for all. There are strict guidelines and rules and precedents and customs and practices which govern the relation between the politician and the executive vis-a-vis the federalism. So there has been certainly dilution of all disease over the years. This is not the first time. See, the IPS officers, of course, my friend, the former DGP, he's here, Hari. I leave it to him to discuss that in detail. See, when Karunanidhi was arrested by Jayalalitha. We saw on the TV that old man being manhandled, whether he belongs to this party or that party. The All India service officers have to maintain certain decorum. They have to act within the rules. The central government wanted the IPS officers to be taken back to center. The state refused. Center did not take any action. Now, when Mr. Nadda's motorcade was attacked recently in Calcutta, then those IPS officers who were found for inaction, they were also asked to report. They did not report. This does not augur well for the nation. The IAS and the IPS and the All India services have to function within the framework of rules and regulations at a time when they have to be asked to choose between A or B, between the state or the center. They should know the ultimate authority to which the All India services owe their allegiance is nothing but the Constitution of India. We get the protection of Article 311 of the Constitution. There are rules, regulations, precedents, customs, which should govern the conduct. Now, to put the long story short, an IAS officer or an IPS officer or an All India service should know you cannot act without an act and rule without rules. We cannot be arbitrary. We cannot pawn ourselves as pawns in the chessboard of political games. See, look at what happened in West Bengal. See, from the point of view of the Chief Minister, she is going by the rules of politics for whatever it means. But an IAS officer is not going by the rules of politics. There should be a Lakshman Rekha. There is a Lakshman Rekha between the IAS officer and the center, between the IAS officer and the state. But there is no Lakshman Rekha between the IAS officer or the IPS officer and the Constitution. Therefore, the prime tenets for which the All India services were created by Jawaharlal Nehru and Sardar Patel, I underline Sardar Patel, they said that an IAS officer, an IPS officer, and an All India service officer should be marked by neutrality, impartiality, objectivity. And when there you have a cornered, you have only one institution to which you can fall back upon. That is the Constitution of India. Therefore, to sum up, in a democracy, who is supreme? Undoubtedly, the political executive is supreme. The bureaucracy has to be act under that. But the bureaucracy cannot pledge its individuality to this political party or the other. In many states, now IAS officers, IPS officers, as branded as their men, our men, no. IAS officer belongs to the whole of India. And what distinguishes All India service officers from the others? An All India service officer should feel he has to reassure himself every time, I belong not to the east or the west or the north or the south. I belong to the whole of India, and the whole of India belongs to me. That is the spirit of the All India services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, for giving a very, very forthright picture about the Indian administrative services. And Dr. Bose has mentioned very, very clearly that according to him, the political executives are the ultimate authority. And he says that the All India services, the IAS or IPS or people are for the All India, they belongs to the entire country, not for a state. And he has mentioned the recent controversy about the West Bengal, where the Chief Secretary of the West Bengal deliberately or whatsoever the compulsion has not attended the meeting for the disaster management called by the Prime Minister. And that's why he was asked to come report to Delhi, but he refused, and he got the retirement on the same day. Now, this has created again a new controversy, who is supreme, whether the politicians or political dispensation or the administration, the IAS or IPS. But what Dr. Bose is very clear, and he has given all the, even he has quoted the Rule 6 of the All India Services laws, and he mentioned very clearly that according to him, the Chief Secretary has no other option, because if the concurrence, it says that whenever the central government requires the concurrence, whenever the central government asks the officer to come on the deputation, the concurrence is required from the state government. But in case of there is a in case of a dispute, the center's he will overrule the state. So when this is the condition, he should have come. Anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Bose, for giving your views, although you being yourself an IAS officer, but you have very clearly mentioned that the IAS officers are there to serve the people on the order order of the political executives. Only thing is that they can give the advice. Once they take the advice, it is very good. If they will not take the advice, according to him, also they have to work more faithfully. And he has given the example of the arrest of former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Karunanidhi, and other examples also is given. Thank you very much for illustrating the reality of a administrative service or the bureaucrats. Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Now I am coming to my next guest, and he is Captain Ganesh Karnik. Captain Ganesh Karnik is the former member of Karnataka Legislative Council. Captain Ganesh Karnik was the opposition chief whip of Karnataka Legislative Council. He is the chief state spokesman of BJP. He hails from an agriculture family. He obtained his degree in 1981 from University of Agriculture Sciences, College of Agriculture, Dharwad, Karnataka. He after successfully cleared the Combined Defense Services Examination and Training at Officers Training Academy, OTA, Chennai, joined the Indian Army as a commissioned officer in the Artillery Regiment. He has served along the northern, eastern, western borders of our country. He took voluntary release from the Indian Army as captain in November 1988. He has been serving in schools and colleges managed by Nitya Education Trust in various capacities since 1992. He is the state president of Swadeshi Vijna Andolan, Karnataka. He is member of Academic Council of MIT School of Government, Pune. He is president of Mani Krishna Swami Academy, Mangalore. He was the former deputy chairman, NRI Forum, Karnataka State with a cabinet status, June 2008 to December 2012. He was the national co-convener of BJP Teachers Cell. He was former state convener, Overseas Friends of BJP. He was the former elected member of Mangalore University, Senate, Syndicate and Finance Committee. He was the former member of Academic Council of Mangalore University, Academic Council of Karnataka State Law University, Hubli, Academic Council of Karnataka State Sanskrit University, former president of Public Relations Society of India, Mangalore, former member of various committees on women and child welfare, public accounts, petition and others, former state organizing secretary of Karnataka State Secondary Teachers Association. He has extensively traveled in USA, UK, Germany, China, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, UAE, Sultanate of Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait. His areas of interest are in social service, reading, music, Indian philosophy, tracking, welfare of children and multiple disabilities, agriculture, and rural economics. Welcome, Captain Ganesh Karnik, on our show. Captain Ganesh Karnik, you have heard a seasoned bureaucrat, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. And Dr. C.V. Anand Bose has clearly put the onus of the control or the supremacy in the field of politicians or the political dispensation. Now, being a politician yourself, and you are watching what is happening for last so many years, we would like to know from you the politicians versus bureaucrats. Captain Ganesh Karnik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lal Goel, for this wonderful introduction. My pranams to all the erudite scholarly panel members, especially I heard Dr. C.V. Anand Bose speaking now. I wish everybody carries a similar kind of thought as far as the relationship between the bureaucracy and the political executive that was referring to. I thought I will quote what Swami Vivekananda said when youngsters met him on his return from the very famous USA tour after 4 years. So youngsters went and asked him, Swamiji, you're so profound. With your couple of speeches all around the world, you have been successful in taking the image of this country to such great heights. So why don't you get us independence? Swamiji was silent for a couple of seconds, and then he asked these youngsters, what next? Simple two-word question, what next? Actually, the youngsters who wanted an answer from Swamiji were perplexed. Swamiji, what next? We have been fighting for independence. It was in 1897. So from 1857 to 1897, 4 decades, we have been fighting for freedom. And we'll get freedom. Again, Swamiji was silent for a couple of seconds. Then he asked the same question. What next, gentlemen? This youngster did not know what to answer. Then Swamiji said, we need men of character. When we have men of character in this country, independence is incidental. It will happen just like that. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, when he gave this beautiful constitution to our country, he had cautioned us. I am quite confident. I may not be quoting the exact words. I will only try to communicate his feelings. I am very confident that this constitution will not fail the citizens of this country. But depending on who is going to handle this constitution, who is going to manage this constitution, I may not be very confident of the constitution delivering what is required to be delivered. So while agreeing in totality with what Dr. C.V. Anand mentioned about the bureaucracy and all that, I think the constitution has very clearly defined the role of the executive, the role of the legislature, and role of the judiciary. Now, the confusion has happened because we have been trespassing into each other's role, unfortunately. So it is not the question of whether it's bureaucracy versus political executive, or political executive versus bureaucracy, or political executive versus the judiciary. It is we having failed in understanding our specific role and then adhering to it. This model called democracy that we have adopted, that we have grown into ourselves, like he rightly mentioned, we the people of India have given our constitution. So this model called democracy is ideally meant for a very enlightened citizenry. When there is enlightened citizenry, there is accountability, there is responsibility, there is answerability, which will bring in absolute professionalism. Unfortunately, I would say the bureaucracy, at least there is a process of selection. You have to undergo a different levels of selection process. You are screened. So at least there is certain standards which are maintained as far as the intake is concerned. Unfortunately, as a political system, we have to depend on the volunteers. Volunteers who walk into different political parties with different political ideologies, with different political approaches, with different political purposes, with their specific interests. And the political system has to manage all these things with the available resource, which is not screened, which has not undergone a process of selection. So unfortunately, even though I'm also from the political system, I don't know if I say this in public, I'll be isolated and cornered. We are managing with the, I would say, with very small people who have very, very short-term political interests. This is first part. The second part is, unless you understand your role, unless you understand your particular responsibility as a political executive, how will you deliver? And unfortunately, most of the time, or many a time, so-called erudite, scholarly, well-trained, and well-read the bureaucracy has to work under very small people who hold the helm of affairs. What he said is very true. Ultimately, it is the political executive who is the supreme. But if that political executive who sits on top of everybody, and if he takes stupid decisions, I'm sorry for using this word, stupid decisions, how do you expect a very erudite, scholarly, intelligent bureaucrat to deliver it? So I personally feel, if your this debate is being named as bureaucracy versus a political system, it is not bureaucracy versus political system. I would say it is, before this discussion started, I just casually mentioned that the good, the bad, and the dirty, if you take it as the quality in each human being, it is equally distributed in all walks of life. There are good people in bureaucracy, there are good people in politics. There are bad people in politics, there are bad people in bureaucracy. There are dirty people in politics, there are dirty people in bureaucracy or political system. Now, the challenge in front of all of us is, how do you identify good people? How do you promote those good people in different walks of society? Whether it is from Gram Panchayat elected members or till the Lok Sabha elected members, the process of selection of the candidates, process of selection of the candidate in each political party, can we have some standards? When I use the word education, that is a very debatable and a highly questionable kind of a thing. So I don't want to use that word. But if all the political parties, since we are in politics, because the basic purpose of, main purpose of a political system is to deliver the social justice or to ensure that there is social service. So that is a basic purpose. So that being the common purpose for all of us, we may have different ideological background, but can you have some parameters where the political system invites the best of the talents to come into the system called politics? Unless this happens, bureaucracy at many times, I personally feel, is at the crossroads, whether to listen to the political executive or not to listen to the political executive. This is, I would say, the bane of the contention. The other part is, I personally feel, in the name of decentralization, in the name of social justice, again, a very debatable thing. We have multi-levels of governance. Supposing you are a deputy commissioner of a district, do you listen to the Lok Sabha representative? Do you listen to the local MLAs? Do you listen to the local Jilla Panchayat president and Jilla Panchayat elected members? Do you listen to the local minister in charge? Do you listen to all the ministers in charge? Do you listen to all the political bosses of a different political identity? So there are multi-levels of, he used the word interference, multi-levels of interference from different political shades with different political ideologies. Now, the legislature enacts different laws. It is the prerogative of the legislature to do the enactments. Now, these enactments are being implemented through a bureaucratic system. Now, when you implement an enactment, when a law is being implemented after judicial scrutiny or constitutional validity, whatever it is, they make different set of rules and regulations. Because the political system, political executive doesn't have the authority to implement the enactment that himself has made. It has to be done through the bureaucracy. Now, the problem comes in implementation of the enactment of the state under different rules. Now, different political parties interpret in different ways. Different bureaucratic executives interpret the law, interpret the rules in different ways. And then there is a necessity for a political leader to interfere. He used the word interference. If you want me to give a small example, the same example which he quoted in West Bengal. The protocol says, even if the chief minister, for reasons best known to her, was delayed by, say, half an hour or whatever it is in coming and meeting the Honorable Prime Minister, the Chief Secretary of the State had no excuse to delay his presence there. But he was in a dilemma, whether he should listen to his immediate political boss or whether he should go and attend to his protocol. So when the immediate political boss insisted that you come along with me, possibly he was in a dilemma, what to do and what not to do, he doesn't know. Now, if we punish that particular person, I don't know whether he had a political ideology, whether he was leaning towards the political leadership of the state, I really don't know. But in a dilemma, how do you expect a bureaucrat to conduct himself in a very, I would say, in a way which is model for everybody? So when bureaucracy has to listen to different political bosses, when bureaucracy has to listen to different political ideological moorings, then that is the time I think they take sides. Rather, they are forced to take sides. Supposing had he gone to the Prime Minister's meeting, he would have possibly put the immediate political boss on the wrong side. Having not gone and attended the meeting, he has put the central leadership on the wrong side. So these kind of interferences by different political bosses at times puts the bureaucracy into confusion. With these initial words, I would like to compliment Mr. C.V. Anand for quoting that Bahujana Sukhaya, Bahujana Hitaya. So if we understand this basic principle as political leaders, as executive, possibly there cannot be confrontation. One last point before I wind up. In political system, we are made answerable, accountable to people at least once in 5 years. However strong he is, however tall he is, however influential he is, he has to go back to people and get revalidated and come back to the political system. Whereas bureaucracy, like Mr. Lal Goel initially mentioned, bureaucracy is permanent. Nobody can touch them. So at times, this kind of an arrogance sets in, at least in a couple of people. Nobody can do anything to me kind of thing. So if some kind of a system is evolved where such erring officials or erring bureaucrats can be taken to task through a system of transparent and verifiable kind of a system, they also become little more accountable, answerable. Otherwise, there is a possibility that they start playing between the center and the state when there are two different, political parties at the helm of affairs. So it is not the question of political system versus the executive system. I personally feel it is our inability to select the right kind of people for the right kind of job. And that creates all confusions. So the fault is at both the sides. Fault is at both political system as well as the executive. But for the country to progress, for the country to advance, the country to achieve its true inherent potential, I think the political system, which is the political executive, and the bureaucracy has to work hand in hand. This is the ultimate that is required in this society. And let me thank Mr. Lal Goel for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much. Dhanyawad. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Captain Ganesh Karnik. I will be coming back to you. But what Captain Karnik has said, he has given a new dimension to the discussion. He says, yes, bureaucrats, the political executive is the ultimate, as Dr. C.V. Anand both says. But he also said the problem in India especially is that the bureaucrats have been selected after a very, very tough competition, lots of screening, etc., and rigorous training. While there is no such type of thing as far as the politics is concerned and the politicians are concerned. And that's why the problem is there. He says many times the bureaucrat feels that whatsoever orders been given by the political executive is not correct, not in the interest of public or whatsoever. And that's why they try to resist. And that's the conflict starts. While the politician who has been elected by the people always have a responsibility for the people, because every 5 years they have to go back to the same constituency or wherever to re-elect and re-vet it. While the bureaucracy, especially in the civil services, all India civil services, it's a once he has been selected, it's very, very, very difficult to remove the officer. No, that's why the bureaucracy and the conflict starts. And he has also given the example of the West Bengal. He says that the bureaucrat, the chief secretary at that time, was in dilemma. Whether he should see as per the rules, he was supposed to attend Honorable Prime Minister's meeting, but because his immediate boss, the Chief Minister of the West Bengal, she has asked him not to go. Now, in that case, what a senior bureaucrat can do? According to Captain Karnik, if he would have attended the Prime Minister's meeting, she might have become annoyed. And we know that if the Chief Minister became annoyed, he might have landed, although that Captain Karnik has not said, but we all know that he might have landed in the jail next day for some charges or whatnot. Now, when this is the condition, And he has also mentioned that the bureaucrats or the politician must think only for the welfare of the society, welfare of the people, welfare of the country, instead of their own interest. And that's why it is very much required to have a very, very good coordination among the politicians as well as the bureaucrats to run the country very smoothly. And that is the purpose, basic purpose for the bureaucrats as well as for the politicians. Thank you very much, Captain Ganesh Karnik, for giving such a good narration about the politicians and how you want some changes, which is very, I'm sure the political dispensation can consider this, that at least some criteria should be decided for before taking anyone in their party field, so that they can also behave nicely with those officers who have been who are uprights, who have come with so much vigorous training and with so much knowledge. Thank you very much, Captain Ganesh Karnik. My next panelist is Mr. M. Harisen Verma, IPS. Mr. Verma is of 1985 West Bengal cadre batch. He worked in various capacities in West Bengal till 2004 when he joined Government of India. He was SP of Birabhum district and North 24 Pargana district, which was the largest district in India in terms of population. He served as United Nations Police Monitor in Mozambique in 1994. From 2004 till 2019 December, when he retired, he worked under Ministry of Home Affairs in Delhi, Trivandrum, Agartala, and Chennai. He is a recipient of UN Peacekeeping Medal in 1994, Indian Police Medal in 2001, President's Police Medal in 2009, and Ati Utkrist Seva Padak in 2020 post-retirement. He has written a 500-page analysis on Gita in Malayalam, which was published by DC Books. He is continuing research, study, and writing on Gita. He has also published several poems, short stories, and articles in Malayalam and in English. Welcome, Mr. M. Harisen Verma, IPS, on our show. Mr. Verma, you have heard our earlier panelist, Captain Ganesh Karnik, as well as Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Both have given their views and their views on the politicians as well as the bureaucracy. Now, being in the Indian Police Service, and you are also in the state, you have served the state, West Bengal, and afterwards you have served the center. So you have seen the relationship between the center and state, and you might have also be called on deputation from West Bengal at that time. So you know who is going to be the supreme, and you have seen the relationship among them. Now, we would like to know from you the politicians versus bureaucrats. Mr. Harisen Verma, IPS, please.
When we joined service, the first thing we were discussing among ourselves, we probationers, about political interference. You know, we were always discussing, even in our teachers in the classes also, about political interference. So this was considered to be one of the biggest challenges for any bureaucrat or a police officer also. After all, police is also part of the bureaucracy only. So it's a police bureaucracy, even though with some certain distinctions. So I will come to that since I will be narrating mainly on from the police IPS side. So we were telling about how the politicians will be manipulating or intervening unnecessarily. But as Sri Bose told, there is both political interference and political action. Political action is legitimate and is necessary in a democratic country. Political executive is the supreme. There's no doubt about it. But it is not absolutely supreme. There is a fine line that Lakshman Rekha, Dr. Bose also said. So that is there. So then there is political interference. Purpose other than the values enshrined in our constitution. But as I started working, we understood that it is not political interference alone. More than that, what can I say? It is bureaucratic intervention. From the generalist bureaucrats also, and we were working the police and also from the police bureaucracy. So we were always blaming the other side. But as time went away, I can now say, after retirement, that the most interference is from our own, for a police officer, is from the police bureaucracy. Most of the interference. And then next from the, much less maybe from the general bureaucracy, and even lesser from the politicians. The political executive would be taking political action. We have to follow the policy of the state, but sometimes the political executive also errs. It was the intervention way, interference way, intervention. But there's another group which it's not political executive, but politicians who are not. We are not supposed to directly answer to them, but still we are answerable to them, because they represent the public, the people. The people are, in fact, the real supreme. So, like my predecessor told in this discussion, when a legitimate grievance or lacuna, shortfall is brought to the attention of the bureaucrat or the police officer by any constitutional body member, an MLA or MLC or an MP or any politician who is not a member of any of these, but he's a politician, he represents a political party, or he may be an independent, but involved in political activities, social activities and political activities, maybe in a lower grassroots level. So when he comes, we have to understand that it is the he is coming with a purpose. He may be correct, he may be wrong, but we have to give about all in respect to that. But the same people, the same set of people, very often we have found that they also intervene. They do it in a with a mal intention. That's there. But still, I have told that the political interference was less. Why? It is because these people who are not members of the political executive, when they come and they talk and when they try to intervene, we can deal with that. We don't feel it as intervention. It's just like talking to different types of people among the common masses, also who are more representative, who have to be respected, but at the same time, who is now transgressing his constitutional or his legitimate role. So there we can stop it. But why we feel it as a difficult thing is that when the political executive who get influenced by these politicians, the normal politicians, when these people get influenced by these people and the same requirement is channelized to that executive over us, over the bureaucracy or the police bureaucracy, then it is a political interference. So that way, this type of political interference, I found that not that high as to the other, to the extent of the other two interventions, like bureaucratic and much higher interference was from our own bosses. So there are bad elements everywhere, as Captain Ganesh Karnik told, bad elements in police, in bureaucracy, politicians. So they will definitely, true to their character, they will do things with their bad intention only. So that will definitely affect the people below them and around them, and general people also. Not only the employee, the staff, but everybody gets affected also. So we have to have better people with the character, as Swami Vivekananda told, that's very fine. But my contention or my small clarification I would like to say about what Captain Karnik told is that these people, with character, without character, will be there. We should have a much better reformed recruitment system for both bureaucracy and as well as for, all levels, senior bureaucracy and lower bureaucracy also, so that only people with better character comes up. But here we don't have that. There is a need for reforms. I'm coming to that. That will be one of my major points. But the other than that, we cannot just leave it to the fate that some good people may occupy a post, then something good will come. Some bad person is given got a post, then bad. No. The system has to be strengthened. There should be checks and balances. there should be, the discretion should be kept at a definite level. It should not be all around discretion, which is now happening. That discretion is almost very large extent. It is there for the political executive. It is there to some good extent for the bureaucratic bosses, as well as for the police bureaucracy also. So as we can reduce these options they are having, discretion, then there will be better better governance. So that's the need for this need for reforms in all institutions and instruments of governance. That's what is lacking. In our country, after independence, had several periods of reforms, whether for good or bad. Some reforms under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Then there were reforms later under Prime Minister Narasimha Rao and Finance Minister Manmohan Singh, the economic field. There were reforms in the electoral field under the then Chief Electoral Election Commissioner, Sri T.N. Sheshan. So these are all there. But basic instruments who are to execute these things, they are the bureaucracy, the police, and also the agency to supervise and intervene with the ultimate authority is the judiciary, and any transgressions have to be sent to prison for reform standards. So all these things are yet to be reformed. They are just like that. There are some superficial reform steps and reforms here and there, but using the same old horse, whipping it again and again, we may get some result, but not enough. That is happening everywhere. Even just now, even for the COVID resistance also, even for many other, even for that demonetization also, we had failed in certain respects because of this lack of reforms of the institutions and instruments of governance. So I would say that the reforms are a must, and through the reforms, there should be the checks and balances instituted in black and white also, and there should be answer to many of the questions of doubt during governance, like what the British did. They made beautiful manuals. So for every department, painstaking efforts, but of course with a colonial mindset, exploitative mindset, yes. But still they made it, and looking at, we could understand what to do, what not to do. Like in Bengal, we had a PRB. This was considered to be our Bible sort of thing. This is police regulations Bengal. Then, as I would like to say, the Calcutta police was a separate entity, entirely separate from the state police. That's a unique thing in West Bengal only. So they had another manual called PRC, Police Regulations Calcutta. So whenever there is a doubt, we had just refer it and we would find an answer. Mahatma Gandhi was telling, whenever he had any doubt, he used to refer to the Bhagavad Gita and he used to get an answer. So something like, of course, that doesn't cover everything. It was in the colonial period, it was done. It was never after revised. But even in the colonial period also, there is a definite degree of discretion, everything to be returned. But it was largely kept, and some what you call customs were there in posting, in transfer, and all. Now, once the left front came to power, I belong to the West Bengal cadre. So when the left front government came, many of these, what you call traditions were overlooked. And just for their, near totalitarian control of bureaucracy, police, and all, they started. Say they may post a very junior officer to a post which is generally given only after a long period of tenure in other posts. So then the discretion is becoming larger and larger. So that way the interference increases, the docile bureaucracy or the police officers, their numbers increases. So we have to make this discretion of the political executive as less as possible. Now, somebody is telling that, I think Goel was telling, if the ex-chief secretary violated the order of CM, he would land in jail. Can it happen in a democratic country? That means there are not enough checks and balances. Any case can be instituted against anybody. but the big fries are escaping. It cannot be. So in any developed country, these systems are there. That's why in the lower and middle level of administration in developed Western countries, the corruption is also very less. It's also part of it. We should have zero tolerance to corruption. We cannot just accept corruption in one way and then think that we will be able to reform things and develop. And we will fail at one stage or other. We will fail. So that Anna Hazare's movement of 2011, 12, like that represented the anguish of the people, the requirement of the people of India. But unfortunately, nothing came out of after that. That has been put under the carpet. I mean, despite a very present administration does not, at the highest level, does not have any serious allegations. That's fine. But down below, I don't think the situation has changed. Everywhere, in the states or in the center also, down below, the same people, same bad people or good people, they are continuing, but there should be more checks and balances. And especially judiciary has to be reformed first. Otherwise, a corrupt fellow, against him, if somebody moves, that fellow will go to the court. And the court will grant him a stay. And he will get back. He will be posted. He may be suspended, dismissed, he will come back. So these type of things. So we have to start very urgently in reforms, starting from judicial reforms, then bureaucratic, police, prisons, all these reforms, intelligence, and all these reforms are needed. We have a good thing that we have started the military reforms, and we also need large-scale electoral reforms also. So that can be done by a nationalistic, strong leadership like that of Sri Narendra Modi. So this is a golden opportunity we are having, and we may be wasting it if we are not following it. And coming to West Bengal, just my character, I want to state about the present incident of Alapan Bandopathyay. So I would say that during left front rule, the bureaucracy, meaning police also, were controlled in different ways, very subtly, very scientifically. Not only the political executive interfering from the top, no. There were associations given a lot of power within the government servants and also in police. And they will sometimes harass you, abuse you, even beat up also. So this one another way of controlling you. Or they may get the work done at a lower level, since many of the lower level people are board members of these associations or unions. So somehow or other, they will get their work there with their political interest, not really political action, not for the sake of the public welfare. So that they were doing. This was a near totalitarian system. And after the present CM, Mamata Banerjee came, one good thing she did was that these associations and unions were all almost practically closed. But despite that, these came back through the back door. Now, in a highly disorganized way also. Earlier, it was an organized thing under left front. Now, these people who are at the lower level, who are what you call lumpen elements, they are intervening in a very branch of administration. And if to resist it is very difficult for a lower level employee. And then still further senior level also, at the drop of a hat, a person against whom there is some disobedience, but based on strict constitutional norms, if that senior officer makes a mistake, he, according to their norms, then he is immediately transferred overnight. So I just give an example. One minister was involved in a riot in Calcutta. That is in 2012-13. So involved means his henchmen were there. They were instrumental in killing of one sub-inspector. So the police commissioner then started a case. He could have taken further action. He didn't do that. At least he did start the case against, including this gentleman also, because he was in the conspiracy. So against that minister. So immediately, overnight, he was transferred. These things never happened during left front regime because there was a method, tariqa. So then they may do it after 3 months, 6 months. So that's a better one way. So this situation is even worse now in West Bengal, and things cannot change unless the reforms are initiated from topmost level, from central level, and in every state very urgently. Let us start for that. Then only we will be able to solve all these problems. And then just like the selection of politicians, it was told that selection by Captain Karnik that they don't undergo any selection process. Of course, election process is there. But the selection process of the bureaucrat and the police, they also need to be, in all levels, need to be reformed. Bad elements do come because of the corruption also. So we have to have from the from the birth to death, or from recruitment till retirement, even post-retirement jobs also, there should be reforms. There should be methods clearly chalked out. All these things like clearing of the gray areas, that is needed. So that is, unless that is done, these things will recur one form or another, any part of the country. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verma, for giving your views. And what Mr. Verma says, this is only possible that when we will have more, we should have reforms. And he says the reform should start from the top. And he has also mentioned about the judicial system. Yes, because there is a famous saying which says no corruption unless the judicial system is corrupt. And he says the reforms are required in the police department, in the bureaucracy. Unless these reforms will not come, the same thing will happen, even the political interference or other interference. And he mentioned very clearly, it's not only the political interference, including the bureaucratic interference. Rather in the police, he says the bosses of police, they interfere more than the politicians. And he says the politician who is coming to them is for the welfare of the public. So that has to be done. But it all depends on the political or the bureaucratic bosses, what is in their mind. So according to him, a very clear-cut system should be there. The reform should be there. Even he says the corruption is there in the selection process. But as for my information is that when an IAS or IPS or the civil service that is selected, there is a lots of inquiry. The local police or IB reports always goes for that person, and then only they give the final thing. But still, he wants a more stringent selection process so that no corruption. He says that should be a zero tolerance. Thank you very much, Mr. Verma, for giving your views. Now I would like to go back to Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Dr. Bose, you have heard all the three things. You yourself have mentioned about the bureaucracy. Captain Ganesh Karnik has mentioned about the politicians vis-a-vis bureaucracy, but he has more thrust on the politician. And Mr. Verma has given more thrust on the police services. Now you are still with the government, being the one-man expert commission as a principal advisor in the government of India. You are also coordinating now. Now, my question to you is, you have seen the tussle at West Bengal twice. First thing about the transfer of the police, some officers, even when there was an arrest of the police commissioner there, so much we have seen in the media how the drama has taken place on the streets in the night and whatnot. Now, the recent incident of the chief secretary. Now, if you would have been the helm of the state or as a chief secretary or on the whichever position, what you would have done to see that there should not be a disobedience or the violation of the Indian Civil Service Code. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, please.
I will certainly give a specific answer to your specific question. To set the background for this, I would recall the statement made by Captain Karnik, very relevant statement. Whether it is politics or in bureaucracy or anywhere, there will be the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is premise number one, benchmark. The good, bad, and the ugly will always be there. Now, Hari said about interference, which comes from the politicians is one, but which comes from the bureaucratic higher-ups is in fact more pernicious. Now the question, see, when the Prime Minister is visiting the state, it is the absolute responsibility of the Chief Secretary to make arrangements that he is not showing a favor to the Prime Minister. He is duty bound to do that. He is a civil servant. He is not the boss. There is something called Blue Book, which Hari Verma knows. This Blue Book is not prescribed by this government alone. It has always been there. What arrangements have we made when the VVIP visits that? It's not the protocol alone that matters. See, why did the Prime Minister come there? The Prime Minister come there to take stock of the natural calamity there. Under the Disaster Management Act, if you fail to obey orders, you can even be arrested. See, who is the person who is to implement the Disaster Management Act in a state? The ultimate responsibility is the top civil servant, the Chief Secretary. If the man who is in charge of implementing the Disaster Management Act becomes himself the disaster, what a state of affairs is that? And your question to me, right? See, I am a retired civil servant. I don't want to put my younger generation in the dock, but I have to answer a specific question from you. I would certainly have told the Chief Minister, Madam, you cannot do this. Please go and attend. All the political differences can be sorted out separately. Please, I am a civil servant. Please don't bring me between the devil and the deep sea. In very polite words, no, without insulting her, without offending her, in very polite words, make her see reason. Otherwise, you have to take a stand. Madam, I have to attend. Yes, for me, there will be no second thinking about it. Maybe the next day I may not become the Chief Secretary. Yes, that always is there. See, if you stick to your guns, if you're honest and you are fair, of course, you should be respectful to your political bosses. Never try to humiliate them before others. No, be respectful. Be firm beneath your gentleness and gentle beneath your firmness. What will happen to you? They may not give you good postings. They may not may transfer you on and off. They may not give you foreign assignments. They may not give you any good posting worth the name. They may marginalize. But wherever you are marginalized, please see that any post can give opportunities for you to innovate and prove yourself. Therefore, when, as I said, there is a Lakshman Rekha. The Lakshman Rekha cannot be crossed by anybody in public life. It appears a bureaucrat also. Number one point. Secondly, Hari said a very valid point. See, it's not political interference alone which bothers the bureaucracy. Political interference, I would say, is there, but nothing which in my personal career, I have never found any difficulty in dealing with politicians. Some of them may not like you, some of them may like you, and those who once hated you also like you after some time, provided there is consistency in your behavior. But my God, this interference by the bureaucratic bosses, my God, is very difficult. It is said jokingly that about seniors, in bureaucracy, the higher bureaucrats or the bosses are like the bobtail monkeys. The higher they go, the more their bottom they expose. This is very true about the Indian civil service. Very difficult. See, politician may ask you to do this or that. Next moment, he may even forget that. But the bureaucrat, the senior bureaucrat, he knows how to do it. If he cites the rules and regulations, he will tell you how to flout the rules and regulations. So I would say, pernicious way of interference for any young bureaucrat is interference from his own boss. Because there is a feeling that the boss is always right. The boss may not always be right, but it's very difficult to say that the boss is always right to curry favors. Therefore, in bureaucracy, you will certainly be facing interference by your bosses, the politicians. You have to be on your own. See, if you go to please everybody, you will end up displeasing everybody. Therefore, be objective. I would say in my 45 years, I have found better to be objective. Be fair, and never ever show arrogance. Even when others humiliate your political bosses, never be arrogant to them, never try to humiliate them. That is where I want, once again, I repeat, you be firm beneath your gentleness and gentle beneath of him, firmness. And ultimately, what is going to happen? See, in India, I find, correct me if I am wrong, seasoned, our respectful former captain and also the present political leader, Mr. Karnik is here. I see there is a tendency to create states within states. What is an imperium in imperio, which goes against federalism. I apprehend a deliberate attempt to break the federal structure of this country. I do not think this is an isolated political act by certain ambitious politicians. I even find the hands of the Break India Brigade supported by outsiders in this. India is a federation. Its strength is that it's a federation. All India Service is there to see that a federal structure is kept up. I think the basic challenges are there. It's not just a question of the whims and fancies of the chief minister and the attitude of a bureaucrat as it has happened in Bengal. There are larger issues involved in this.
Now, I would like to go to Captain Ganesh Karnik. Captain Ganesh Karnik, you served in the army and you are now in the politics. So, and you are dealing with the bureaucrats also. What difference you found from the army to the politics and the bureaucracy? And what have you seen this type of tussle between the army and the politicians, or the bureaucrats versus the army?
Well, Mr. Goel, I would like just to say, see, we three of us, we have been discussing. I don't think there are differences as such in our rules and regulations. The differences is in the character of individuals. He used the word be firm, but be gentle. So each one of us, if we understand our responsibility, and if you follow the rule of law, if you don't bring in subjective issues into your, whatever responsibility you're ushering in, I don't think there can be any confusion. The bureaucratic interference, the political interference, it's all because of men of smaller character. So possibly there is a requirement of a reform at this juncture. But as you heard, very senior bureaucrat, Mr. Anand, as well as you heard Mr. Hari saying, and you have heard me. See, if three of us sit together today, I don't think we have differences because we have a common aim. But that is not the case. This interference with the senior officers, I had seen it in armed forces. I've seen it in the bureaucracy. I've seen it among the political system. So ultimately, it amounts to having men of character. Rather, if you don't have such people in the system, whether it is bureaucracy, whether it is political system, or whether it is judiciary, then you need to have a strict rule of law, which is implementable. So unless you have these things well defined, and unless you have men of character, which is a very difficult proposition, I think it is rule of law. It is basically rule of law. Army and police force, maybe it is slightly less because there is a clear hierarchy and clear set of rule of law. Whereas in political system, we don't have any rules. So I think it is time political parties, because ultimately, like Mr. Anand said, it is the political executive who is supreme, at least in the execution of a lot of things. So if the political parties do not have a set of, I would say, standard operating procedures, when in power, when not in power, I think this political interference will be detrimental to the effective implementation of constitutional obligations of each one of us in different roles. So I suggest it is time after 7 decades to revisit all these things and redefine our entire processes. So we need to have very firm implemental standard operating procedures for all of us. This is what I would like to say.
Okay. Thank you very much, Captain Ganesh Karnik. Paucity of time. Now I would like to go to Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma, 1 minute only. See, the IPS gone against central government orders, and it is not first time. Even in the Tamil Nadu also the same thing has happened. Now the West Bengal has happened. What, according to you, should be because the relationship between the IPS and the political dispensation is going down. Although you have mentioned about the reforms and all those things, but anything which you want to suggest in one minute only.
I already told about reforms. That is the one particular thing I will say. And one more thing I will say, that police especially is sought to be controlled by politicians, because it is only partly under a political executive, partly under the courts. So that's why the judicial reform is highly needed for the improvement of the police. So, as I told, from recruitment till retirement, the rules have to be revisited, as Captain Karnik told. There should be implementable SOPs in all fields. That is the reform. Yes. a fixed tenure, and all these things. So let us go for that, start for that. This is my request.
Okay, thank you very much. So viewers, you have seen that it's not the politicians versus bureaucracy. It's basically depends on the politician as well as the bureaucrat, how they are. If they are of good character, if they are good, been trained properly, if they are firm and polite, as mentioned by our expert here, then there is no confrontation, because the aim of the politician or political executive as well as the bureaucrats are the same, to serve the people. And if the aim is same, then definitely means can be different. But if the means it can be of the same way, which our panelists have suggested, then there be no confrontation at all. And as Captain Karnik says, when we can sit here, the three different persons like from IAS, IPS, and a politician, why not they can do it in general also? And it is possible. It is possible. Only thing is some reforms, something is required, and I'm sure the change will come soon, because now the things which has going out will definitely bring out the change. Thank you very much for the today's program. Thank you very much, Captain Ganesh Karnik. Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan Verma. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Saroka News, as well as shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you every day new thing. But for last 3 weeks, we are doing an evening program where we are calling a Achiever every evening at 4:30 p.m. And today, the program called Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang. Our chief guest is Mr. Deepak Jyoti Ghediyal, former Inspector General of Police, Uttarakhand. So please tune in today for Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang at 4:30 p.m. Thank you very much, all our distinguished guests, as well as thank you all the viewers for watching our show. Thank you very much.